How to make a buzz cut cool. This is a video that I've wanted to put out for a long time now, and I was actually planning on putting it out by about this summer because every summer I get a lot of clients who want to buzz their hair off. But with the current weird pandemic thing going on, I've been getting a lot of friends and clients sending me pictures saying, hey man, buzzed it all off, because we just can't cut hair right now. So I thought, okay, now is as relevant a time as any to talk about how to make a buzz cut cool. So as I said, every summer I tend to get a lot of requests for, I just want to buzz it all off, or a lot of statements from clients that say that they would like to buzz it all off, but. So like the first thing is, a lot of times they don't want to look like they're in the military. They're worried that short hair automatically looks like a military cut. Another thing that they'll mention is, I'd love to buzz it off like Brad Pitt in Fight Club, but I don't look like Brad Pitt. And so we have this self-doubt about how cool we are, how cool we actually look. And then the third reason that people tend to want to buzz it but not get there is that they're worried they're going to lose their personal style. You know, if you buzz all your hair off, you have somewhat of a homogenized look where it's just basic. I mean, there's not much style to it, or is there? I don't know. We'll talk about it. So the first of these concerns is actually pretty easy to understand and really easy to avoid. The threshold that you cross where a haircut starts to look like a military cut is all about the corners here. If you take the hair up too high on the sides, if you take the short part up and over that round, then you end up with a sort of pad of hair in the middle that looks like the lid on a jar. And so if you're worried you're going to look like you have a military cut, just keep it all one length, or else if you're going to cut the sides shorter, keep it low. As long as you're not up and over those corners, you're not going to have a military look. Now, not that a military cut is a bad look, but if you don't want any particular look and you end up with that particular look, then any particular look can be a bad look if it's not what you want. You know what I'm saying? So the second concern is, well, it works for Brad Pitt, or it works for David Beckham, or it works for whoever else, but I don't look like them. We have this like tendency to look at certain celebrities who can do something that's pretty mundane and down to earth and go, wow, it works for them, but it won't work for me. And let me just kind of try to dispel that here. Part of the reason Brad Pitt looks so good with a buzz cut is that he's been dolled up to look good with a buzz cut. There's so many factors and things that go into it. So first of all, the cut has been personalized and detailed for him. We'll get into that later. But also, he's dressed in a way that is cohesive with the way that that looks. He knows how to pose. I mean, the instant he knows a camera's on him, he does this thing with his eyes that I can't do. But it's like a very much practiced and learned thing that models do, that like weird squinchy thing with your eye. So he's posing in all these photos. And then whether you see him in a movie or a photo of him and his buzzed head looks really cool, it's been very strategically lit. It's been color graded beautifully. There's just so much work that goes into it to make this little clip of the guy look amazing, to where all we know about the way that we look is when we pull out our camera and take a selfie and I go, oh, I definitely don't look like Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt's been retouched. He poses, he's lit, he's color graded, he's styled, and he has a team of people to make these images that we find of him. And it's not just Brad Pitt. I'm not trying to pick on Brad Pitt, but I'm talking about like David Beckham and all these celebrities and stuff. We'll see them do a somewhat mundane haircut, and for whatever reason on them it's so much cooler. It's because of all the stuff that goes into the way that they are portrayed to us, the way that by the time an image gets to us, it's been not necessarily doctored, like I wouldn't say it's a lie, but it's been curated and it's been put together just so to make sure that they look epic, larger than life, better than life. So if you were to search for any of these celebrities and try to find like candid snapshots of them where maybe they didn't have their pose on and it was put in a position where the lighting wasn't great, we have this tendency when we see some of these people, just because they're them, like if you see the guy from Peaky Blinders and he has a bowl haircut and you're like, oh my gosh, it's so cool, but it's because it's him. You know, we tend to see these people through like heart eyes, and just because it's them, we see something better than what we're actually seeing. And so like find a candid picture of one of these people, hide the face, and really look at the hair. So the truth is, all of these pieces that go into them looking so much better than us, individually these pieces, the sloppy buzz cut or whatever haircut they have, are pretty down to earth. But it's the collective of the way that these things are put together and packaged up and delivered to us that makes it appear larger than life and better than real life. That's why Peaky Blinders can have a bowl haircut and look cool, because he's wearing a three-piece suit and he's like beautifully lit. And granted, okay, like all these people also, they do start with this natural, beautiful bone structure and like striking eyes and all of this. So they do have that little advantage that normal people don't have. But most of what you're seeing is all this other stuff, all these other factors meant to just glamorize them, really. And this is actually one of the reasons I love photography, because I feel like it gives me the opportunity to take like a normal person who's never seen themselves in that light, so to speak, and pose them and light them in a way that they can look at it and go, wow, I almost look like a model. I mean, it's all of this other stuff that goes into the imagery that we digest from these people. Like, it's camera tricks, it's post-processing, it's color grading, it's lighting. And if you were able to see yourself with all of that production, there wouldn't be such a huge gap between like, oh, well, Brad Pitt can shave his head, but I can't because I don't look like Brad Pitt. If you saw yourself in the light, so to speak, that he is portrayed in all the time, you would realize that we're not all that different. And the final concern that's regularly addressed by clients who are on the verge of wanting to buzz their head is that they're going to lose their personal style. It is kind of easy to look at the idea of just buzzing your head and going, wow, there's no character there. Like, how can I be me still? How can I still look like I like to look? You know, it's like erasing a whole part of your image. A buzz cut can be surprisingly personalized and surprisingly detailed. In fact, when you're working with hair that short, all you have is little details. And it's these little details that will fit together your story and your style. Getting the details wrong is the terrifying part about buzzing your head. What if I don't look good with it? Well, if you get the details wrong, you won't look good. But as long as the hairstylist or barber is very much aware of your personal style and you're aware of your personal style and you work to communicate and collaborate and match the details of the haircut to your personal details, it can work. So like if you look at this picture of Brad Pitt here, you look at the buzzed head that he's got going on, and if you look along some of the edges, you'll see that it's not very evenly cut. It's almost like a quick job where they missed a bunch of hairs. And to a lot of technicians, we'd look at that and go, oh my gosh, that's a bad haircut. It's not even. But it's that unevenness that gives it a feeling, that gives it some character. It's texture, more or less. If you look at his scalp, you can see cowlicks here and there. And you know, he didn't go in with a razor and try to cut off the weird hairs on the edges. He just left everything kind of natural, and that gives it so much character. If you look along the edges, like behind the sideburn, you'll also see some wispy hairs that more or less look like they were either missed or they grew out that way. But the point being, the overall look and feel of this particular buzz cut is very casual and aloof. That's a much different story, a much different style than if you were to taper the sideburns and line up the edges. Now, if you look at the rest of the image, you can see that the fabric on his clothing is more or less wrinkled a little bit. It's not badly wrinkled, like he just pulled it out of the dryer or something, but he's not wearing stiff, clean fabrics. He's not very polished in this particular photo. His body language, his smoking a cigarette and everything, he's a very casual, laid-back kind of vibe going on here. And so the haircut, having these little imperfections, absolutely matches that, and it's his personal style right here is very cohesive and it's very put together. To where if in this particular photo he had a perfectly smooth blurry fade, it might not look right. However, and not that I'm saying blurry fades and crisp lines are bad, but if it doesn't match your style, it is bad. And as I said earlier, if you're aiming for one thing and you get another thing, that's bad. So look, if you're the type who is going on 1 year wearing a pair of selvage denim jeans with one rinse, no washes, and they're just starting to break in and look really cool, and you're into that whole kind of thing, and you like, you know, if you're the type where, given the choice between a vintage leather jacket or a brand new, like, All Saints jacket, you're like, oh, I would take the vintage jacket, then these softer details and more or less imperfections, these little bits of character showing in the haircut, that might be more your style. And getting your haircut in this way to where the buzz cut is more or less messy or there's a little hair missed here or there, it can absolutely speak toward that kind of lived in real life, like, oh, I don't care, but I accidentally happen to look good kind of thing. Sort of like when you have like a favorite flannel and it's starting to look better and better, like the more that it gets beat up and worn and used and it feels better, you know? But on the flip side, if you're the type and you're wearing like immaculate trainers and everything is just crisp and perfect and you carry yourself that way, then I think more uniform cuts and a clean, strong line would suit you more. And so you got to keep these things in mind. When we say buzz cut, it's really easy to miss all these different details because the hair is so short. And so you say buzz cut and you don't realize that there's like this whole vast plethora of versions of the buzz cut and different specific details that can be tweaked to match your style. At the end of the day, the name of the game is always to match the personal style of the person wearing the haircut, and it is not always to show the world how clean you are at doing a fade or a line. Sometimes it is that, but always it's to match the vibe of the client. So many of these details come down to your eye as a technician. You look at the head, you see what it kind of wants to do, and you work with that, and you kind of have the big picture from the beginning, like you know if you're going to leave a detail here, a little messy edge there, and it very much is like here and here, right? And so you figure it out, but it's also obviously going to come down to your technique. If you try to scissor over comb anything you can on one of these buzz cuts, you will get a softer, more texturized, natural look. It's just the nature of the way that the scissors work. They don't create as uniform of a cut over the area of the head as a clipper would. And so with these little microscopic imperfections, you end up with texture, you end up with softness. And so scissor over comb anything that you can. If you're not really great with scissors and you're going to use clippers, try going with the direction of the growth. See, when you cut against the way the hair grows, then the clipper blades will actually lift up the hair and cause it to cut very uniformly. Where if you cut in the same direction that the hair grows, it doesn't lift all the hairs, and so it doesn't cut them as uniformly. And so that's why, you know, when you're learning to use clippers, they always tell you cut against the grain. But if you cut with the grain, especially on straight hair like mine, you're gonna miss a whole bunch of hairs. And so you give it a couple quick passes that way, you're gonna have some of these little fuzzy hairs that you missed, and it can actually look very cool if that is the intention that you're going for. As far as the edges, you don't have to line everything up. If it fits, line it up. But if it doesn't fit, just buzz right up to the line and don't make a line. Just kind of leave it natural and take off the fuzz next to the line, but let everything just sit as it grows naturally. And you know, a lot of times we have cowlicks along the edges or weird things that we feel like, oh, well, that's imperfect. I got to take off these imperfections. But with a haircut this short, those imperfections are the only character that you can give the haircut. It's not like you can style it differently, you know? So don't be afraid of natural imperfections and natural inconsistencies. In fact, by leaving them, especially along the edges of the haircut, you'll make the haircut last longer. It'll grow back a little more nicely. You won't see things fall apart in a few days. You'll see things fall apart several weeks later. And so one last thought about these sort of buzz cuts is if you do keep things softer, more natural like we've been talking about, one of the great things is that your hair will actually grow into another nice style, another fun, usable, workable style. See, when you cut every hair perfectly to a uniform length, like with a clipper, and you're sitting there and you're getting everything super uniform, and it all kind of grows out together, it doesn't move as interestingly as texturized hair does. It's like, much like, you know, if you make a blunt cut with scissors, that hair is going to be a wall of hair. It's not going to move. But if you texturize the hair and you cut some of them shorter, then the hairs move interestingly. And so by doing these softer kind of buzz cuts, as they grow back, instead of being a wall of hair that's coming out here, it's going to be shattered and jagged and texturized, and it's going to move a little bit. And so you kind of get your few weeks of having a buzz cut that you don't do anything with. And then a few weeks later, you can kind of part it a little bit, or you can kind of mess it up here and there, and then buzz it again if you want, or whatever. But it's kind of cool the way that going from this short, messy buzz cut, it actually will grow into a usable, livable, nice, shorter hairstyle pretty freaking easily. To where, again, if you put in hard lines here and there, and if you shave things too tightly, then it doesn't grow back as gracefully into another style. So thanks for watching. I hope this has been helpful and has caused you to think about maybe buzzing your head, because, I mean, we all got to do it sooner or later. It's just something that you got to try once in your life. Like, subscribe, all that if you're interested. Thank you.